Welcome back. I think it's hard to argue that so much is going on right now, from civil unrest, a rocky election season, and dealing with the pandemic and all of its many, many changes. So how do we stay hopeful and positive during these times? Joining me this morning is Dr. Melanie Ross Mills. She's a relationship and friendship expert and a licensed temperament therapist. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. Great to have you this morning. Dr. Mel, how do we stay upbeat through everything that's happening right now?
Well, for starters, let's consider our weather is in the 80s.
Yeah.
If we cannot be happy about that, we have a problem. But truly, we need to first of all look at the way that we're thinking, our mindsets. Are we having fears that are either unhealthy or healthy? And so if we are having unhealthy fears, they can lead us to pick up that worry ball and run with it and go down those rabbit trails that most of the time they don't happen. Or are we having healthy fears that are warranted? Do we need to take control over some of our decisions and the way we're spending the time that we're spending and what we're doing in our actions?
So what do we do if we are experiencing some fear-based thinking?
That's a great question. I think we need to look at the things that we can control. So clearly there's a lot that we can't control right now. We can control our choices and our mindsets. And so if we just look at the people we're hanging out with, for starters, if we're hanging out with people that are negative and critical and possibly toxic, that's not helping us. We cannot become positive if we are hanging out with heavy negative thinkers.
So it might be time to look at your social circle and see who might need to be eliminated.
Yes, well, I'm not necessarily eliminated, but right now we are so sensitive, right? Our senses are heightened. We are not really knowing what's going on, and things are kind of chaotic. So being with people that are optimistic and have healthy mindsets and do think positively and hopefully really does impact how we are thinking and feeling.
Totally. How do we self-examine whether or not our fears are unwarranted or maybe irrational?
That's a great question. I think we look at, first and foremost, if we have a pattern of worrying, how often does that worry actually come to pass? How often do those things really happen? But if there's things that are warranted and we might lose our job or we might have a hard time with the homeschooling, let's do things and make decisions and choices that we can make that will actually empower us and move us forward.
You know, nothing is really normal right now. So how do we kind of tell ourselves just to be realistic and go with the flow?
Nothing is normal, right? And so I love beginning with gratitude. And we can look at even the smallest things, from the air that we breathe. Like, thankfully we have breath. Or we can look at the roof over our heads. And literally, I encourage people to write down these 10 things every morning that you're grateful for, because that's going to impact the rest of your day and how you're perceiving things, how you're thinking, how you're perceiving yourself even, and your worth.
Dr. Melanie, you have something called the top 5 and how we identify our top 5. What is that?
I love the top 5. So you know the saying that we become like those we hang out with?
Yeah.
It is
birds of a feather flock together.
It's so true, isn't it? So you might have noticed sometimes you're hanging out with people that might be paranoid or critical, and then you start taking on those thought processes. And so looking at our top 5, literally naming our top 5. If we look at our top 5 and they're not actually being healthy for us right now, we're not letting go, we're not, cutting them out of our lives, but right now, because we're so sensitive, we really do need to make an effort to be surrounded by the people that are good for us, good for our souls, good for our spirits, that encourage us, that have our best interests in mind. And so one thing that I do is I encourage people to say, would I recommend this friend for my daughter or my son or my mother or my dad or my family? It's a great way to look at our top 5.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. Dr. Melanie, how can people reach out to you? I know you're big on Instagram. I follow you.
I love Instagram. I love Instagram. So MelanieRossMills.com is my website. And I'm at Dr. Melanie R. Mills on Instagram.
All right, we got all your information there on the screen. Dr. Melanie, thank you so much for joining us here on Daybreak. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. I love you guys.
And we'll be right back after this break with another check on your weather.